a grand juror allegedly related to or connected to the Karen Reed trial or the Karen Reed investigation has been found guilty on charges. So what the charges are, we're going to get into it here in just a second. We're going to find out exactly what the plea was. I'll take you guys through the document and show you what went down. But before we get into that, let's hear and get an idea of what's going on with this entire situation, because it's weird and embarrassing, to say the least.
A woman is now admitting that she broke the law by leaking secret information about the Karen Reed case. ABC News has confirmed that Jessica Leslie served on the grand jury investigating Reed and the death of her boyfriend, John O'Keefe. It is illegal to disclose what happens in grand jury proceedings. Leslie has pleaded guilty to a charge of criminal contempt. She will serve 2 years of supervised release. Also at 6.
2 years of supervised release? Really? That's it? We're going to talk about what she possibly could have been facing for releasing this type of information. But guys, I have served on a grand jury. I have not served on a federal grand jury, but grand jury's grand jury. And during these times, the DA's office is very particular about what information you have. They're specific about what information you have to release. You can release, what you can talk about, and basically it's nothing. Don't talk about it when you leave here. If you have a notepad, you got to leave it, put it in the basket, and get out of here. Right? And it's pretty straightforward. But when you're on a grand jury, a lot of times you go through indictments like crazy. There were days when I was serving on the grand jury here in Fulton County. We went through 20, 30, 40, 50 indictments in one day. Absolutely insane. So again, a lot of information. We're going to find out a little bit more about what happened in this specific case and why she might be in trouble here. This is so wild. Grand juror to plead guilty to leaking information in the federal probe of the Karen Reed's case. News 25 reports. What is happening? So hopefully I'm saying this name right, because y'all know the title of these cities in Massachusetts are kind of wild, but a Dracut woman is charged with allegedly leaking information about the federal investigation into the Karen Reed case. Jessica M. Leslie, 34, was charged on July 11th with 1 count of criminal contempt. She has agreed to plead guilty to this charge and will serve 1 day in prison, undergo 2 years of supervised release, and a mandatory special assignment of $100. I know she's over there hurting, guys, right? Now, according to the Boston Globe, Leslie was sitting on the grand jury hearing evidence about the state prosecution of Karen. Was acquitted of killing her Boston police officer boyfriend, John O'Keefe, during a snowstorm in 2022. All right. So what they're saying is she was sitting on the grand jury hearing evidence about the state prosecution of Karen Reed. So that's what the Boston Globe is reporting. Now we're going to actually move forward and hear what the Massachusetts woman is being charged with from the U.S. State's Attorney's Office. What are they saying here? And they had a press release that is very interesting. So they say this woman has been charged with allegedly disclosing information presented to a federal grand jury to unauthorized individuals. Jessica M. Leslie, 34, was charged Friday, July 11th, with 1 count of criminal contempt. The defendant has agreed to plead guilty and will make an initial appearance in federal court in Boston at a later date. A plea hearing has not yet been scheduled by the court. According to the charging document, on various dates between August 11th, 2022 and March 4th of 2024, the defendant disclosed sealed information to unauthorized individuals, not just one person, but multiple people, right? Including the names of various witnesses appearing before a federal grand jury, the substance of the witness testimony, and other evidence presented to the grand jury in violation of the federal rules and court order. It's no good. No good at all. The charge of criminal contempt provides for a sentence of any term of years in prison, which means the judge can decide whatever the judge wants. This is scary. Can y'all imagine this lady does this and the judge decides to give her 20 years in prison, 5 years of supervised release, and a fine of up to $250,000. Sentences are imposed by a federal district court judge based on the U.S. sentencing guidelines and statutes which govern the determination of a sentence in a criminal case. U.S. Attorney Leah B. Foley and Ted E. Docks, special agent in charge of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Boston, made an announcement today. Assistant U.S. Attorney Ann P., because I'm going to mess up her name, chief of the Major Crimes Unit, is prosecuting the case. The details contained in charging documents are allegations. The defendant is presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt in a court of law. Right. So now, as we mentioned, we're going to hear from TB a lot as we cover this because we still got a lot to get to. But he did have something to say when it comes to these allegations and what's being said about this juror and how it's related to the Karen Read trial. Y'all check this out.
With somebody who this person sent that information to. And this individual was visited by the feds about it, about this post. The post had nothing to do with the Karen Read case, nothing. And they came with receipts and they're like worried about it. Like the FBI showed up at their door, wanted to look at her phone. It's a fucking, it is a buzzkill. Like this is the biggest but I can't see him watching it. I go online and everyone on both sides, like our side is like, oh man, feds are coming. They're going to get all the McAlberts are all going down. And then the retards on the other side are saying, oh, they're coming after, they're going to get Karen Read and Turtle Boy and all this shit. They're not, none of that's happening. This is all over a fucking post about the CDL shit. This is a fucking fact, an undeniable fucking fact that this is how this started, was the CDL thing. Now, the woman who is in trouble here, Jessica Leslie, right? She was on the Karen Read grand jury because you're on they sit you down for a grand jury.
Yep.
You hear all the fucking cases. You hear all of them.
All right. So let's actually see what the federal government is saying and what she was found guilty of. So let's look at this from the United States of America versus Jessica M. Leslie. Check this out. On count 1, criminal contempt. The United States attorney charges from or about August 11th, 2022 through or on or about March 4th of 2024, the District of Massachusetts, the defendant, Jessica M. Leslie, knowingly and willfully disobeyed and resisted a lawful order, rule, decree, and command of a court of the United States. That is the Federal Rule of Criminal Procedure 6E2 and the order and command of the Honorable IT, because I'm going to mess up that name, United States District Judge on May 26, 2022, that a grand juror must disclose a matter occurring before the grand jury when or on diverse dates she disclosed information presented to the grand jury to unauthorized individuals, more than one, to wit, the names of various witnesses appearing before the grand jury and the substance of their testimony and other evidence presented to the grand jury, all while said information was under seal and not subject to disclosure. That is bad, guys. Super bad. All in violation of Title 18, United States Code, Section 4013. Okay. And then we go on. This is signed by the U.S. State's Attorney. There we have it there. And that is Ann P., because I'm going to mess up her name as well. And that was on July 11th of this month. So then we're going to go into, check this out. And let me make sure I have this right. So what was the plea? Here's the plea here. We've got Attorney Halpern, hopefully I said that right, the U.S. Attorney for the District of Massachusetts, and your client Jessica Leslie, the defendant, agree as follows, pursuant to Federal Rule of Criminal Procedure, Rule 11C1C. Change of plea. As soon as practicable, defendant will waive indictment and plead guilty to count 1 of the information, the criminal contempt in violation of 18 U.S.C. Defendant admits that defendant committed the crime specified in this count and is guilty of it. Dang. Penalties. Defendant faces the following maximum penalties: incarceration for any terms of years. Thankfully, the judge was nice here, because that could have been bad. Supervised release for 5 years, a fine of $250,000 unless incarceration is imposed, and a mandatory special assessment of $100. In accordance to Rule 11(1)(c), if the court accepts this plea, which they did, the court must include the agreed disposition in the judgment. If the court rejects any part of this plea agreement, the U.S. attorney may void the agreement and or the defendant may withdraw from it. The defendant may not withdraw the defendant's plea for any reason. I think she learned her lesson. I think you guys would probably agree. Should the U.S. attorney void the agreement and or the defendant moves to withdraw the defendant's guilty plea, the defendant agrees to waive any defenses based upon the statute of limitations, the constitutional protection against pre-indictment delay, and the Speedy Trial Acts for all charges such as such. Okay, the sentencing guidelines, this is where they get all the guidelines too. We're not attorneys, so we don't need to go through all of that. The defendant does have the right to challenge the defendant's conviction and sentence on direct appeal. Do y'all think she's going to challenge this? I mean, she's had a little time she has to do. She has a little time she had to do in jail. She had to do 1 day, according to reports. I don't know. This means the defendant has the right to ask a higher court, the appeals court, to look at what happened in this case. And if the appeals court finds that the court or the trial court or the parties made certain mistakes, overturn the defendant's conviction or sentence. Also, in some instances, the defendant has the right to file a separate civil lawsuit claiming that serious mistakes were made in this case and that the defendant's conviction or sentence should be overturned. Again, I think if what we're hearing is true, this chick got caught red-handed, unfortunately. So I don't know if there's any going back on this one. Obviously, you have civil liability. You have the breach of plea agreement, which we're not going to get into here. Who is bound by the plea agreement? Obviously, everyone involved. Modifications to the plea. Now, this is interesting. The agreement can be modified or supplemented only in a written memorandum signed by both parties or through proceedings in open court. If this letter accurately reflects the agreement between the U.S. attorney and the defendant, please have the defendant sign the acknowledgement of the plea agreement below. Please also sign below as witness. Return the original of this letter to the assistant U.S. attorney in P. And that was signed by Leah B. Foley and, of course, AP. And then, of course, we have here Jessica Leslie acknowledging that she's taking this plea. She read and discussed it with her attorney. The letter accurately presents her agreement with the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Massachusetts. There are no unwritten agreements between me and the United States Attorney's Office, and no United States government official has made any unwritten promises or representations to me in connections with my guilty plea. I have received no prior offers to resolve this case. And then it goes on and so forth. And she just signed this a couple days ago. Wow. What do you guys think about this? This is so messed up, and I'll be interested to see how this affects the FBI's investigation, but it seems like there's a lot more information that's missing, and we're going to get into what possibly could have happened behind this, and then we're actually going to find out and figure out what the connections are here. So let me know what y'all think about this in the comments and in the chat.